This is my presentation for our human physiology lab research project. So, to get started, my name is Ruth Black, if you didn't already know. I'm a biochemistry major at Simpson College, and I hopefully plan to graduate in May of 2021. And next, I will introduce my group members. So first we have Alaina Baldner, and she is a clinical health science major, and she will also be graduating in May of 2021. My next group member is Carter Paterson, and he is an exercise science major and also plans to graduate in May of 2021. My third group member is Emmalyn Pratt. She is a health and exercise science major and also plans to graduate in May of 2021. And my final group member is Cassidy Price, and she is a clinical health science major and plans to graduate in May of 2021. So, the topic for our research project was the bilateral measurement of EMG activity in the quadriceps of ACL reconstruction patients. We wanted to measure the EMG activity in the quadriceps, specifically the rectus femoris, in those who have undergone ACL reconstruction, and we wanted to compare the electrical activity in the uninjured leg to the injured leg. We questioned how EMG activity will differ bilaterally in patients that have had ACL reconstruction. From this, we were able to hypothesize that participants would demonstrate a decrease in EMG activity in the leg that had ACL reconstruction when we compared the EMG activity to that of the non-injured leg. So for our experimental design, we used the BioPack EMG program, and we used that to measure the electrical activity in the quad because this was able to allow us to look at the microscopic level of the muscle and see how the ions move during the excitation coupling step that we had previously learned about in muscle contraction. We decided on using EMG over other methods because it was a way that we could measure the electrical activity of the muscle on the cellular level. And we also decided this because it would be easier to measure if there and see if there was a compensation happening in the muscles and the different legs due to the ACL injury. We chose to have subjects with ACL reconstruction because we wanted to see how the muscles in a person's quad of an injured leg would differ from the muscle activity in a leg that had never been injured before. We selected our subjects from the morning lab just to make data collection a smoother process, and that way, since we were going to over to Kohl's to measure in the gym, we were able to ensure that people would be able to be available during the time of our collection during our morning lab. And to collect the data, we had our subjects squat, and then we measured their squat angle with a goniometer, and we measured it to a specific angle around 135 to 145 degrees, and then we adjusted the catch bars so that they would be right at the subject's shoulders. After that, we placed a weight bar on their shoulders as if they were going to be doing a back squat, and then we told them to push upwards on the catch bars like they were trying to straighten their legs with the weight bar. We chose this because it was an isometric contraction, and we wanted to do an isometric contraction to ensure that the subject would be at their maximum contraction If we had chosen a specific weight, we would have had no way to ensure that they were at a maximum contraction, since some subjects were able to lift more than others. So this way we could ensure that the load would be too heavy for any subject to move. This picture shows where we placed the electrodes, so that we were able to isolate the rectus femoris because it is the primary flexor of the knee. And then we also just included a diagram from our human physiology textbook that would so you could see the muscles more clearly and where we are trying to locate where we're putting the electrodes. So this is some raw data from BioPack that measured the EMG of our subjects. The top graph is our first subject and the bottom graph is our second. We used 2 sets of electrode leads, 1 lead on each leg, so that we could collect the data during the squat on both legs at once. We conducted 3 trials for each subject so that we could calculate an average value, maximum value, to try and reduce the uncertainty in our results. So these screenshots here that we have up on the screen are cropped and only shows one of the squat trials, but there were 3 that we did one after another and recorded it all at once. The red data represents the EMG in the left leg, and the blue data represents the EMG in the right leg. To gather data, we used the BioPack analysis software, and then from that, we were able to isolate each contraction from the trials and highlight the whole section of the contraction in order to find the maximum electrical activity in millivolts during each squat. So then for our So right here, this is where you can see the results. And as you can see, we showed the data for all 3 trials, and then the average of the injured leg and the average of the uninjured leg for each of our subjects. So, and then in this table just shows the averages for our subjects. And we found that the maximum electrical activity in the injured leg was less than the maximum electrical activity in the uninjured leg for both of our subjects. We believe that this could indicate improper healing of the leg or improper rehabilitation. And then we talked about in the future we would like to look into measuring the force output on the injured leg compared to the uninjured leg using a force plate. Our data was definitely limited since we only chose subjects that were in the morning lab. I personally was in charge of the anthropometric data, and after looking at the data, I think that it would have been better if we had a variety in gender for test subjects. I also think that we would have seen a more dramatic difference in electrical activity in the injured leg compared to the non-injured leg if we had chosen subjects that only injured their dominant leg or had only injured their non-dominant leg. Another anthropometric value that I think that we would try to be more selective about if we could do this study again would be trying to find subjects that all had their surgeries around the same time so that we could ensure that they have had around the same amount of time for recovery. After discussing our results, we thought that the time in recovery could definitely have an effect on the electrical activity that we measured. And because of our small testing pool, we were not able to be certain that the patterns that we found would match the patterns that we might have found if we had had a more diverse pool of subjects for our study. But for the most part, with the subjects that we did have, we did find that our data supported our hypothesis that participants would demonstrate a decreased EMG activity in the leg that had the ACL reconstruction when we compared it to the non-injured leg. So that is pretty much all I have for now, and then here are some of the resources that helped us complete our project, and thank you for listening.